Good afternoon and welcome to the North American Bear Center. It is about 4 o'clock p.m. and it's time for our bear enrichment program. One second, I need to go off mic for just a minute. And back, I had to give Honey Bear her little enrichment toy quick. This broadcast is worldwide, that's right. So people across the pond, people all over the U.S. are listening to this broadcast right now. Now we have 3 of our 4 bears out in our 2.5-acre enclosure right now. And so I invite everyone here at the Bear Center to come to the viewing windows or come on out onto the observation deck to get a good look at some of the bears we have here at the North American Bear Center. I will also be giving some directions to our PTZ driver, and that is a worldwide volunteer who is operating our pan, tilt, and zoom camera. Now we have 4 different cameras that are live here at the North American Bear Center. We have our Holly cam. Oh, PTZ driver, Holly's to the far right, coming out by Ted. So we have Holly's little den cam. We have a camera on Ted's den. And then we have a pond cam and our PTZ camera. And to access those, just head on over to our website at www.bear.org. And there's a little tab that says Live Cameras. And from there you can access all 4 of our live feed cameras anywhere in the world. So right now is our 4 o'clock enrichment program. And as you folks who can see may notice, we have toys out for Ted and Honey. Now Ted Bear, to my right, is our 553-pound male black bear. He is 17 years old. And we have given him what we like to call the cube. And the cube is that. It's just a box with 2 holes in it. And inside are some nice little treats for Ted. So we put in some dried cranberries and peanuts, some of his favorites. And as you can see, he's using his paw, his nose, and his mouth to manipulate that cube to get the tasty treats inside. We also have Honey Bear over here to my left. And she is what we call the green thing. Yes, that is what we call it, the green thing. And it is a weird little shaped doohickey with 1 hole in it. And inside we have peanuts and dried cranberries. Once again, one of Honey's favorites. And she is also using her paws and her nose and her tongue to get the yummy treats inside. Now the purpose of doing these programs and giving them these toys is to show how they can do simple problem-solving tasks and the dexterity they have in their paws and noses. And it's not unlike what they would have to do in the wild to get the food they want, whether that be rolling over a log or lifting up a rock. And so it makes them use their brain a little bit. We also have thrown some food out for little Holly Bear. Now Holly, she is our newest addition to the North American Bear Center. She is 18 months old, and as you folks may see, she's a lot smaller than the other bears. She's definitely not full grown yet. And she came to us from Arkansas, so quite a change to northern Minnesota. And we received her December 27th of 2013, so she's only been with us a short time. And when we got her, we tried to get her to hibernate right away, and were successful. Then after she came out of hibernation in the spring, she was a very, very fearful, kind of a timid bear. She was scared of people for sure. And so we kept her in a separate enclosure, which is about the size of a 2-car garage, and worked very diligently with her to get her to bond with a few staff members here. There are 2 specifically. We call them Mama 1 and Mama 2. And these 2 staff members Holly Bear has bonded with the most deeply. And how do you get a little yearling bear who's terrified of people to bond with a person? Well, we fed her with a bottle. And in the wild, that bond between a mother and her baby is strongest when they're breastfeeding. And so, we prepared a formula to mimic what a mother bear in the wild, what her milk would be like. And so, in our formula, we have egg yolks. A majority of it is goat milk. We have yogurt, a whole variety of vitamins, and some oils as well. And so, through the process of these two staff members hand feeding her this bottle, trust developed. And after this trust developed for a while, Holly Bear began to actually go and seek out these two staff members whenever she felt in danger. And so she really, really trusted and had a deep, deep bond with these two women who work here at the North American Bear Center. And then from there, we tried to introduce her to more people and get her used to different voices, different smells. And eventually, on May 30th, we released her into this 2.5-acre enclosure. And as you can see, she's still a little bit intimidated by our 550-pound bear, Ted, which I would be too, honestly, if I was a little yearling. But she has grown in confidence every single day. And if this was 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, she probably wouldn't even come down at all. She's gotten used to my voice over the mic. She's gotten used to people on the deck. And so she's come a long, long way since she's woken up in the spring from hibernation. I would also like to thank you folks on the deck for being extra quiet. That is very, very helpful for little Holly Bear. As you may notice, black bears actually have pretty big ears in comparison to other bear species, like the brown bear. Brown bears have much smaller ears. However, black bears have somewhat larger ears, and Holly's definitely pretty large. So she's very receptive to noises and any sounds. And when we first released her into this 2.5-acre enclosure, she was very responsive to noises, and when she heard something she didn't understand, she would kind of perk up, listen, and then run up a tree. And climbing trees is something all black bears can do from a very young age. Honey Bear here and Ted Bear do not climb anymore, but Holly Bear, or yearling, she climbs quite frequently. And that's because the biggest defense mechanism a black bear has is running away and climbing up a tree. They run first, and then they ask questions later. And so Holly Bear definitely climbs pretty much every day, and she does so to play many of the times. So she'll climb up trees, break off a branch, and climb on down, and then climb up again, break off another branch, and climb on down. And that's kind of how she plays. We have a fourth ambassador bear here, and that is Lucky Bear. And he is currently in his separate enclosure. And each of our bears has its own separate enclosure, about the size of a 2-car garage. And he is our 7-year-old male. He is also what we like to call our local comedian. He's very goofy, he's extremely playful and curious. And even though he's about 336 pounds, he can still climb trees without breaking a sweat. So he and Holly, we actually saw them today, earlier on our camera we have on Holly's pen. We saw Lucky chasing little Holly Bear around in a circle around one of her little boxes she has in there. And this was a playful behavior, it wasn't threatening. And they would kind of go around in the circle and then run out of the den and then run back in and chase each other around. So this is really positive behavior. And play is really important for little bears, so we're really happy to see that her and Lucky are playmates, and we suspect that relationship will grow stronger throughout the years here at the North American Bear Center. Holly is still a little intimidated, I think, by Ted. She's watching his every little move. She'll kind of sniff the ground and then look up, survey the scene, and make sure everything's okay. But those are our 4 bears we have here at the North American Bear Center. We have 2 males, 2 females, and they each have very different personalities. They come from different backgrounds. It looks like Looks like Holly's eating some peanuts, I believe, and some grapes. Those are some of her favorites. Some other foods we do feed our bears. In the morning, they each get a raw egg in the shell, which is a nice little treat, and it gives them a good source of protein. Only about 10% of a black bear's diet is protein, and a majority of that protein comes from immature insect pupae. So a lot of ant and bee pupae, which are very, very high in protein. Otherwise, the majority of their diet is vegetation. They are omnivores, and so they eat clovers and grasses, leaves, flower parts, things like that for a majority of their diet. They also love berries and fruits, and also nuts. So what we feed our bears, I mentioned the raw egg in the morning. We also give them some romaine lettuce, which they love to chow down. Also carrots. And then throughout the day, we feed them usually a mixture of nuts, including Brazil nuts and peanuts in and out of the shell, as well as a very wide variety of fruits. So honey bear here, we found out, likes strawberries today, which some of our other bears don't really like. But we found honey bear especially likes our little strawberries. We also feed them red grapes, it's another favorite, as well as kiwis, avocados. One of Ted Bear's favorite fruits is watermelon, pears, and apples. So they get a good variety of different fruits. And we do not feed our bears any meat, because usually in the wild they don't really prefer meat and they don't eat it very often. And so that's a question we get a lot of the time, is do we feed our bears any meat? And the answer is nope. Just vegetation, berries, and nuts for the most part. We do allow our bears to hibernate as well. And like each bear has different food preferences, they each have different preferences from when they go into the den to hibernate. So honey bear here, our cinnamon phase black bear, she goes in the latest. So last winter she went in December, so it's very late for a black bear. And then came out in the spring, so she only hibernated about 3 months, 3 or 4 months. Whereas Lucky Bear, he went into hibernation in late October. So that's a pretty big difference, late October to December. And then he came out in the spring as well. And we suspect that Honey Bear has some southern genes, because hibernation is somewhat regional. So black bears are found as far south as Mexico. And as you may imagine, in Mexico, or let's say Florida, there's a lot less of a food stress. And so food is available more of the year, and bears can eat a lot more in different foods in comparison to, let's say, Minnesota, where when it gets cold, pretty much there's not that much to eat. And so there aren't really many options for black bears unless they hibernate. So we suspect honey bear has some southern genes. It will also be interesting to see when holly bear goes into hibernation, because she is from Arkansas. We suspect she'll go into hibernation a little bit later as well, but we're not sure, so we'll see what happens. A good example of what a den looks like is our rock den to the right of the pond. And that den actually has not been used by our bears since 2008. However, the window den to the far left, where Honey Bear was taking a little nap before, that has been utilized by Honey Bear herself last winter. So those are 2 dens we have. We also have separate dens in each of the 4 separate enclosures for each of the bears. And they den themselves, and we usually just throw in some hay, close the windows, and they're good to go. Over hibernation, pregnant females will have their babies in January typically. So usually the coldest part of the year, especially in Minnesota, is when mothers will have their little babies. And they're born under a pound, so they're very little, but they're very vocal. We have some vocalizations inside on our far wall when you come down the stairs from the observation deck. And you might hear some squalling, some moaning and humming, and those are very normal sounds that little baby blackbirds make. So they have their babies, they're awake in January, and they all come out of the den together in spring. I would like to thank everyone here at the North American Bear Center who visited and participated in our 4 o'clock enrichment program, especially those of you on the deck for being nice and quiet, and for those of you in the observation windows being quiet, not banging on the windows. We really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank our worldwide listeners and volunteers who are fantastic supporters, and these broadcasts would not be possible without them, so thank you very much. I would also like to remind you folks here today that we are open until 7 p.m., and the pass you purchase is a day pass, so we will feel free to come and go as you please. We have over 60 videos, a ton of literature on black bears, and 2 wonderfully made BBC documentaries in our theater running right now. So thank you folks so much for visiting, and wherever you are, wherever you're listening, I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you once again from all of us here at the North American Bear Center.